Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into one of the biggest, most fundamental questions in all of biology. How does life make more of itself? From the simplest little bacterium all the way up to us, we're going to break down the incredible process of reproduction. So, let's jump right in. So, first things first, let's ask a really basic question. We have to eat, right? We have to breathe. But think about it. An individual organism doesn't actually have to reproduce to stay alive. So, if it's not crucial for your personal survival and it takes up a ton of energy, why bother with it at all? Well, the answer is kind of simple, but it's also incredibly profound. It's not about the individual, it's about the species as a whole. The whole point is to make new individuals, to pass the torch, to make sure the species itself doesn't just disappear. Okay, so if the goal is making copies, how does life actually pull it off? It all boils down to a biological blueprint. So let's dig into this master plan. And that blueprint, of course, is DNA. Think of it like the ultimate instruction manual for life, tucked away inside the nucleus of every cell. DNA holds the code for making proteins, and it's those proteins that build, well, everything. They determine the entire body design of an organism. So, bottom line, you tweak the DNA, you tweak the organism. So, at its most basic level, reproduction is really just cell division. First, a cell makes a copy of its DNA blueprint. Then, it builds all the extracellular stuff it needs. And finally, poof, it divides into two. But, and this is where it gets really interesting, there's a little catch to this whole process. Which, of course, leads us to a really important question. Are these copies absolutely perfect, 100% identical clones of the original? And the answer is a huge no. You see, no biochemical reaction is totally foolproof. There are always tiny little errors or changes that sneak in when the DNA is being copied. We call these variations, and they're why the new cells are super similar but not exactly identical. And this is where those little so-called errors turn out to be a really big deal. Okay, let's picture this. You've got a bunch of bacteria just chilling in some nice, temperate water. Life is good. But then, all of a sudden, the temperature shoots way up. Now, if every single bacterium is an identical clone, they all get wiped out. Game over. But if there's some variation in the group, maybe, just maybe, a few of them have a random trait that lets them handle the heat. They survive, and the species gets to live another day. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that these tiny little imperfections in the copying process, they aren't flaws at all. They're actually the engine that drives evolution. This variation is what gives a species the toolbox it needs to adapt and survive when the world throws it a curveball. Okay, so this whole idea of one parent just copying itself leads us perfectly into our first major strategy, asexual reproduction. This is where a single parent can go it alone and create offspring all by itself. All right, the most straightforward way this happens is called fission. You see this in single-celled organisms like an amoeba. It basically just splits in two. That's it. For these little guys, cell division literally is reproduction. Next up, we've got budding. Think of something like a hydra. It'll grow this little outgrowth called a bud. That bud develops into a miniature version of the parent, and then eventually it just pops off and starts its own life. Pretty cool, right? And then there's another really wild one, fragmentation. An organism like Spirogyra, which is a type of algae, can literally break into different pieces. And each one of those pieces can grow into a brand new whole individual. It's like regeneration on a whole other level. So, what's the upside to all this? Speed. It's super fast, super efficient. You can make a ton of offspring in a really short amount of time. But there's a huge drawback. Because you're only getting new variations from those occasional copying mistakes, building up a diverse set of new traits takes a very, very long time. And that slowness, well, that's a big problem in a fast-changing world. Which brings us to the other big strategy in nature's playbook, sexual reproduction. It's a brilliant solution for kicking variation into high gear. So let's think about this. If waiting around for random mutations is just too slow, how on earth can nature speed things up? How can you create more variation faster? The answer is just genius. Instead of waiting for new variations to pop up, why not just combine the variations that already exist in two different individuals? Yeah, instead of relying on a lucky mutation, sexual reproduction is like taking two decks of genetic cards, one from each parent, and shuffling them together. This creates brand new, unique combinations in every single offspring. It's a way to generate novelty and variation way, way faster. Okay, but wait. This creates a new problem, right? If you just smush two full sets of DNA together, the baby would have double the DNA it needs. That would be a complete genetic mess. So nature came up with this incredibly elegant solution. Specialized cells called gametes, sperm and egg, that only carry half the amount of genetic material. So when those two halves come together, the new organism gets one full, correct set of DNA. Problem solved. All right, so let's tie all of this together and look at a pretty complex example that we're all very familiar with, humans. For humans, this whole journey kicks off when our bodies mature during puberty. That's what gets the system ready for reproduction. From there, you have fertilization, then that long, long period of development. And finally, of course, birth. And when you look at human gametes, you can see they are perfectly designed for their jobs. The male gamete, the sperm, is tiny and it's a powerful swimmer. Its whole job is to travel. The female gametes, the egg, on the other hand, is huge. It doesn't move, and it's packed with all the food and resources the embryo needs to get started after fertilization. And, understanding all this biology isn't just academic. It has huge real-world consequences. This is the basis of reproductive health. We're talking about everything from understanding and preventing sexually transmitted diseases to making smart, informed choices about when and if to have a family using contraception. It's really all about making sure you're ready, physically and mentally, for what is a massive responsibility, creating a new human life. And that brings us to just how much of an investment this whole process is, especially for humans. I mean, developing a baby inside the mother's body takes around 9 months. That's an enormous commitment of time, of energy, of biological resources. It's a huge undertaking. So there you have it, from a simple cell splitting in two to the incredibly complex dance of sexual reproduction, we've seen how life itself creates the variation that fuels evolution. And that leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. This process literally shapes the future of all life. So how will the choices that we, as humans, make about it today end up defining the future of our own species?